That's the Cold Steel holdout. It is a big, weird knife. This is it next to a Falkniven A1, which is a rather large, robust survival knife. That has a 7-inch blade, or 6-inch blade rather, and has a 5-inch handle. This knife has a 6-inch blade and a 7-inch handle. It is a long, big, I would say outlandish design. But I've sort of had some mixed feelings about it since I've been using it. I initially got it, my friend Chris has sent this over to me as a bit of a test before it arrives to its proper home. And so I've done that a little bit. I've done some cutting and some chopping and some all sorts of stuff with it. I tried carrying it in my pocket, but it is just way too big. It pretty much touches the bottom of your seam, like the depth of the pocket, and it even sort of on some of my pants has some sticking out. So it is absolutely enormous. This handle is G10, this blade is CTS XHP, and it uses the triad log design, has a pocket clip that you can swap over, has some speed holes here for, I guess, weight reduction of that G10, and it is a rather light knife for its size. It's only 7 ounces, so 7 ounces usually gets you about, well, it's about, this is about 6 ounces. This is a 7-ounce knife, this Hardcore Hardware MFK number 4, so, it's pretty well spent 7 ounces, but still. Do you want to spend your 7 ounces on something this absolutely enormous? So what I did was, I took it out and I did some cutting and some chopping and some wood shaving and all that sort of thing. And as I did, my opinion of the knife actually, I don't know, it softened a little bit. I can sort of eventually start to see a point for this rather than just hilariously huge, scary knife. Which, I mean, that is a point too. You can certainly get knives just for that reason, but when I put this blade into practice, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. If the knife handle was only this long, and this was a fixed blade knife, it would be a not surprising knife at all. It is simply because it folds, because Cold Steel makes big crazy folding versions of knives that, they say you could probably push towards using for fixed blade tasks due to the triad lock and whatnot. And sure enough, you can cut a fair bit with this blade. You can cut a whole lot actually. It's fully flat ground. So it's a good food prep or really anything bevel, apart from perhaps for battening, but it's a folding knife, so you're probably not going to do that. And so when I was cutting food up, which I'll roll in some footage of me doing now, it actually did really, really well because it's not a thick blade. It is, probably, here's the Spidey Chef. It's a little bit thicker than the Spidey Chef. Just a little bit. But probably actually thinner than this Hardcore Hardware blade. Yeah, there you go, thinner than that. That's a 4.5 millimeter. This is probably about 3.5 millimeters, I'd say. In fact, I think it is. Really, really interesting old knife. So it's one of those things. You get it and you think, this is just stupid. It's just Cold Steel being Cold Steel and making big, silly knives. But then you think, well, really, it's a pretty safe way of transporting a knife, isn't it? Say if you want to take a kitchen knife to camp, if your kitchen knife could do that and you could be sure that you didn't have to keep it specially in your bag, and just folded it into the handle and chucked it in your bag like this. It's actually kind of a good idea, isn't it? It's just the marketing of all these things often just kind of gets in the way of what they're actually practically used for. And this is a well-made knife with really good materials, and it's pretty light. And it will do a job of a kitchen knife without any worries at all. I mean, unless you want a knife that's like that long. I mean, Cold Steel can probably help you with that as well with some of their other huge knives. But really, you get a black coated blade. This is the DLC coating that doesn't come off. It's very, very solid, even with wood processing type tasks. No worries at all. It's nice and high and tall, so it's good for making long slices and whatnot. It's a good shape. It's got a nice flat bit there and then some belly there. It's got a good point on it, so you can do some piercing sort of things if you're perhaps taking it hunting. Good folding pick sticker, really. I know there's no quillion or blade guard or anything there, but it's nice, thick, and very, very sort of fairly rough G10. Not too rough, but it's rough enough that you probably could do some driving with this knife. Not too much, I'd suspect, but unless you're using it to make the actual kill, I think you'd probably do some pretty decent work hunting a wild animal or something like that as well. It's funny, I really did sort of, I actually thought about it rather than just going with my instinct and making like hey, how silly and how funny is this knife? Because it's actually not that silly. It is funny. Like, it's huge, and it's that lol factor when you get it out is undeniable. Like, I'm sure Chris will laugh when it gets to you. When it gets to you, old mate, you'll open it and you'll chuckle because it is like, whoa, and you can't help that at all. But realistically, it's like a big old kitchen knife that folds into its handle, and it's comfortable to hold, and you can transport it safely. You could probably clip it onto your backpack or something like that. And you know what? If you're somewhere where you really want to carry a huge blade around, it's really well made, and it's pretty well priced as well. And it's made with some of the better steel going. Cold steel is great for making kind of fantasy level projects, which are usually sold in, like, off your tree, or like those kind of like junk stores where they sell, pictures of, Native American Indians and statues of dragons and stuff. They sell the types of knife that you buy in those stores, but they actually make them well and out of good materials. So, I don't know, the whole cold steel holdout, it's kind of won me over. I'd probably never buy this myself because I don't really have a need for a folding massive camp kitchen knife. But I'm sure, I assume Chris does, because it's a big knife that he's bought, and it's obviously a big knife when you buy it. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just a bit different, I guess, and just a bit weird. But it's a sharp blade, and I think it has a purpose. And I think as long as you don't expect it to be a completely concealable, competition for your Benchmade Griptilian, I think if you bought this knife, then you're going to be happy with it when it gets here, because you knew what you were buying, and all I can confirm is that it is well made, and it is pulled off very, very well for what they have intended on doing. So yeah, a bit of a weird short review, but I was never going to completely smash this knife anyway, but yeah, just thought I would show you that, because, size comparison there. So it's about as large as a large Griptilian, like a standard Griptilian when it's closed, and when it's open, well, it's a lot larger than a large Griptilian. So there you go. What else we got for size comparison? Kaiser Gemini, Almar Falcon. Geez, there's so many different knives out there. Knives for all different folks. Bloody fantastic. You know what? Cold Steel, don't stop doing what you're doing. This sort of stuff's awesome. As long as not every company is making this, there's definitely a market for it. And as long as you make it well and make it out of good materials, we can go right ahead. Soldier on, old boys, I say. Bloody brilliant. See you later, guys. See you in the next video. Bye now.